Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to continue talking about the DeLillo short story collection, the Angel Esmeralda. Today I'm going to talk about the middle stories in this collection, so I will get right to it here. So the first story I'm going to talk about is called The Runner, which was published in, let's see when that one was published, in 1988. This was I liked this story. This was about a guy who is running, doing it's in the city, and he is doing his daily run, and he witnesses something like the aftermath of what appears to have been a crime, and he's kind of like, as DeLillo describes it, he's running in circles, and on one of his passes, it looks like he saw a car drive off real fast, and he could faintly hear a woman yelling it looks like she'd been shoved to the ground or something. So anyway, he continues on his run, and there's a lot of bystanders are gathering around where it happened, and he's talking to another woman there, and she says that a man basically took a child away from this woman as she was walking in the park, and the woman seems to infer that it was an angry ex-husband who was denied joint custody, and he was angry and took off with the kid, but no one knows. But she seems really certain. Well, anyway, he continues on his run. The cops are there by this point, and he's about to head home, and he sees he asks a cop like what happened, and the cop asks him, what did you see? And he says, well, I just saw a car drive off. That's pretty much all I saw. And he does ask the cop, so was it a ex-husband who took a child? Is that what happened? And the cop just says, no, it was a stranger, and that's all we get. Well, anyway, when he goes back to his apartment building, that same woman is there again, and she like asks him, oh, what happened? And he says, well, you were right. It was actually a father who angry divorced dad took this kid. Kind of lying to this woman. So I don't know. So there's a lot in this story to, I think, unpack. And I think of the three I read, this was the one I thought most about, where first of all, there's the question of why he lied to the woman. And there's the idea of, well, even though they're both terrible and traumatic, maybe it makes us feel a little less shaken if it was someone the child knew. But the idea of a stranger just, pushing a woman, taking her child, and driving off, that's terrifying. It's like something on horrible thing you'd hear in the news or something that happened. So there's that way I think we spin narratives sometimes to maybe make us feel better, is something DeLillo is getting at. And there's also, I think, just the idea of, we've all been in situations where we weren't like a direct witness or something, but maybe we caught a sight of something, or it could be anything. It could be an accident, it could be a crime, but kind of like that weird state of being removed from something, and yet you saw a piece of it. You saw a very small piece of it, and how we, I guess, how we comprehend those things as they happen. We've all been there. So there is that odd thing about it too. And I just think that as keeps kind of playing over in his head, like what he saw, what happened, it's like when we step out, we never know what we're going to see, and 95% of the time when we step out, nothing dramatic happens. But there is that every once in a while, you're in public, you see something, and you just don't know what to make of it, or you think, should I get involved? Should I not get involved? So that was The Runner. That's a very short story. It's only 5 or 6 pages, but I thought I liked it. So the next story is The Ivory Acrobat. This was published the same year, 1988. This is set in Greece, I believe, and the main character is I believe she's an American, and she's teaching English in Greece, and the whole story is in the backdrop of an earthquake. Actually, a series of earthquakes have struck the area she's living in, and this story is really just mainly about living in the aftermath of a natural disaster, like in this case, an earthquake. And DeLillo does a good job of describing how menacing everything seems after an earthquake, and how we know that people got hurt, people died, and everyone is really shooken up in the aftermath. And it's really seen through the lens of the character, this teacher, as she's living in Greece and going through that. I've never lived through an earthquake myself, but I mean, the only natural disasters I typically have any closeness to would be a tornadoes or really bad thunderstorms. But whenever I think nature leaves a lot of damage in its wake and nothing seems safe. Although the book, or the story I should say, really taps into, I think, the paranoia that follows an earthquake, of the idea of just being in a building and it could collapse at any minute. Or DeLillo describes walking in the streets and being afraid of debris falling from buildings, in this kind of tightly contained town or city or wherever it is. So a really good atmosphere in this story. There is like a little thing with the character. One of her friends, a male friend of hers, gives her this figurine that's made out of ivory from Minoan civilization, and he tells her it reminds her of her, and this ivory object takes on a significance for her, and that's kind of where the story goes. So a pretty good atmospheric, as I said, for that one. And then the last one in this set was called The Angel Esmeralda, the titular story in this collection. And this was published in 1994, and this would find its way into Underworld, DeLillo's big novel he published, I think, in 97. And this story, it might actually be verbatim an excerpt that found its way into Underworld. And the story's about we're following a couple of nuns who live in the Bronx, a very rough part of the Bronx that's been experiencing a lot of hardship, environmental hardship, and there's in this whole milieu of the nuns living in this really rough part of New York City, and basically the nun, she goes out every day, and she's very elderly, she's very advanced in age, and she goes out and tries to help people, do what she can to make the community better, whether it's food or providing some services, social services. This is another atmospheric story of living in, I guess you call it like an urban blight type of setting, where, and the hinge of the story really comes to, there is this graffiti art and a young girl who died of a drug overdose there, and there's rumors that there's been visions of an angel where this little girl died, and it becomes this attraction where people want to go there, and they hold vigil, and they think they're going to witness something. So it takes on this spiritual, religious significance, but also becomes like this media event that brings people together in some way. So this story gets into a lot of DeLillo's preoccupations around this time, like his novels Underworld and Mal 2 especially come to mind, White Noise to a certain extent, themes of media saturation and how mass media affects our view of reality. There's a kind of a spiritual component to it about I guess you could say, like the brutality of the modern world clashing with a spiritual worldview, which the nun character embodies in some ways. There's DeLillo is really concerned with like crowd psychology, the psychology of crowds and how that works, and just a lot of the themes that found its way in the underworld that can be found in the story, the Angel Esmeralda. I didn't quite connect with this one as much, maybe because I had sort of read it before, but like I said, it's atmospheric, and DeLille's really going for something here of commenting on the state of the world in the late 20th century, and using this sort of obscure fictional event he creates as kind of a way of making some statements about the modern world and all that. So those were the three stories in this middle part. I have one more I'll do when I get into the 21st century stories that DeLillo wrote. I think this covers 2000 to 2011, so I will talk about those next time. So thanks for watching. If you have any thoughts on DeLillo, or you have any favorites, or just anything on if you're a fan, not a fan. But yeah, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.